Wait, we still got someone. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So my name is Russell Paul. I was the model supervisor on Rogue One. So one of the things that was really fun about Rogue One and sort of special as well is that Rogue One takes place sort of right next to Episode 4, New Hope. And so one of the big things that we really wanted to do is wanted to make sure that all of our new vehicles and new ships and environments really felt like they were part of that same exact universe. And then the other thing that we wanted to do was a lot of the ships and vehicles, we needed to sort of plus them out from what they were in the original. Like the Star Destroyer as a primary example is actually a fairly small miniature. It's actually only 3 feet long. But we sort of have a memory of it being really, really detailed and really intricate and really, really big, even though in reality it wasn't really that big. So we needed to sort of take it and sort of take it to the next level, but make it feel like it's the ship that everybody remembers. I mean, it's such an important ship in sort of our memory. And so what we did is we actually went through and we researched and talked to some of the modelers here and looked at old reference photos that you can see here of what were the model kits that the modelers used in ILM originally to kit bash the original miniatures. And so then we went through and we found some of the kits. These are some of the 16 kits that we originally bought, and we took and we picked out parts of the sprues and we scanned them in the computer, and then we built versions of these kit pieces. And then we have a little library. They were kind of flashing up on the screen. And then we have a library of these kit pieces that then we use to not only build our new versions of like the Y-Wing and the X-Wing and things like that, but we also use them to take things like the Star Destroyer and add in a lot more detail, add in more, more stuff into the, the shield gate or add new ships like the Y-Wing and the U-Wing and the Mighty Tech, and really sort of make them feel like they all felt like they were part of the same exact universe and they all fit right next to each other and could exist in the same space, and everybody would sort of feel real comfortable that they were right there with each other. So you can see like the model of the Y-Wing here. The Y-Wing was built, this is a piece from the Saturn V rocket, if you were a modeler. But this is just the Saturn V rocket, but the modelers took that and that's actually just cut right there, and that's an exact part of what the Y-Wing miniature was. And there's same thing with the X-Wing was part of the Saturn V as well, Blockade Runner, and so there's a lot of really famous model kit pieces. This is a really small toy of the AT-AT, but these pieces are from the Hawker Harrier. That's the kit over there. There's pieces from the guns. All sorts of really neat pieces. And one of the main reasons to do that was these miniature kits, these pieces have all sorts of really interesting shapes and details and mechanical structures. And so, if you take these pieces and you put them together, you can make a really intricate, detailed model really easily, as opposed to having to make any of this stuff by hand. They're just really amazing pieces that are hard to think of on your own. But, as a miniature, that are just matching a gas tank, and you put a couple of those next to each other and you have some really interesting shapes. Yeah. So that's actually just a simple early version of our Star Destroyer, just in simple gray. And you can see here as we started to add more and more detail to it. Interesting thing about the Star Destroyer was the Episode 4 one actually doesn't have any lights. Most people remember it having lights, but it was actually the 8-foot miniature from Episode 5 that actually had the light sources on it. And so we sort of had to do a little bit of the merging of the two. So we added light sources in reference to the Episode 5 lighting pattern, and we sort of applied that to our version of that as well. So this is Episode 4, but you can see this is the lighting from Episode 5, and then our new one here in the center.
Russ, you were talking earlier with John about how the sort of theory behind build it like you remember it, not how it actually was.
Yeah, so that's it's a really good point, Greg. Thanks. Is that it is sort of build it how you remember it, because like you said, you remember it being this big giant complex thing, and that's what we really wanted to have in there, is that how you remember it to be. And so if you look at something like our new detailed bridge of the Star Destroyer here, it's actually a lot more detailed, a lot more complex. In actuality, you can, interestingly enough, so if you zoom into this little bit right here, so this piece right here is actually, in reality, was this little model kit piece, that same one. And so that little model kit piece, it had no detail on it or nothing. That was just stuck on top of the Star Destroyer, and they just took that and they put that up there. But so in order for our movie to sort of add something to it, you can see that we took we took some extra little detailed bits and added to it to give it a little bit more scale and complexity and stuff like that. But yeah, but that's the actual piece that they used for it. So we wanted to go in and add to it to make it feel like it was bigger and more realistic. It is a mile-long ship, so you can get enough detail on it.
So do you use this kit bashing philosophy on the new things like the U-wing or the shield?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's a lot of it is actually getting into, you know, you can see it here. This is the shield. A lot of it is getting into that sort of the spirit of how the modelers worked originally. You know, there's sort of a story to the details and greeblies. Greeblies, we call them greeblies when we stick with detail one. You know, they're not just randomly stuck on. You know, we do actually really try and tell a story with these parts, you know, trying to imagine what these little things might be. Is it a hatch? Is it a door? Is it a mechanical unit of some type or whatever it is? And so we really tried to sort of get into the spirit of how the model makers were working originally so that we could keep everything sort of in that same aesthetic. So yeah. So yeah, you can see on the shield gate there's quite a bit of the kit bashing, and you can see a lot of the little parts all around in here. This is a big complex element, but yeah, in order to get a lot of the scale and stuff like that, we did follow along with the same pieces.
You want to touch on the texture and paint, the sort of used universe?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, that follows right along with the story of things. You know, the idea that a lot of the stuff that we try and do is actually to not stand out, to feel like it's used, to feel like it's been there. So details and greeblies, and when you tell a story with like these little mechanical parts, the texture artists can then come in and they can pick up on that story. You know, by having these nice little details, it gives them an area to say, here's some drips, or some oil, or here's some stains, and it helps it to give it that sort of feel like things are built and they're put together and they have a use for them. And it really helps people to make it feel like it's realistic. Like it's, you know, the stuff isn't random. And when it has that little story with it, then, you know, it helps it to make it feel real and it doesn't stand out and it ties in and you just kind of believe that it's exactly how it works.
What was the name of this ship? The Shield?
Oh, we call this the Shield Gate.
Shield Gate.
Shield Gate.
Oh.
Yeah, as you see more of the film, you're going to see more and more of what Russell's talking about, where, you know, down to the Y-wings and the X-wings, where the pilot would put their foot on the thing to get into the cockpit, like it's worn in that area. There's actually paint worn and you see metal shining through. So no detail, you know, is left to chance. It's all painted in there, put in for a specific reason to lend credibility to the fact that everything in the shot, you know, and in the film has a history. It's been around. The Rebels don't have the money the Empire does, right?
Yeah.
So their stuff is all kludged together. They make it work.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually reference of the Y-wing with actually that back end, that engine's actually all covered up, and there's things that, you know, just in the story of the universe that, yeah, the Rebels are, like you said, they're sort of just hodgepodging and getting stuff together, and sometimes that actually tells a story in the texture as well. We take like panels, like, you know, oh, they replaced a panel with a new panel, so the texture looks a little bit different, so things don't feel like it's not some nice new clean Star Trek style perfect organized paint. It's definitely a used, you know, lived in universe, and that came from George in the originals. This is a place that people have been around for a while. They've been using this stuff.
Did you hide little details? I know, like on the original Millennium Falcon, they had spark plug stickers and other things like that.
I'm trying to think if there's things that are hidden in there.
Okay, all right.
You know, there's definitely little things that we put in there, but you know, the hard part now is that it's much higher resolution, you know, 4K and you know, other things that happen with it. So, you know, they used to be able to get away with a lot back then. You know, there's names and stuff on the Millennium Falcon. You know.
Yeah, they wrote their names on it.
Yeah, but yeah, so we don't do too much of that anymore. But there's definitely Easter eggs in there. You know, everybody likes to put little things in there that they love. There's some stuff in the Star Destroyers, you know, that we could hide in there. You know, the originals had the big executor from episode 5 has the little action figures in the detail. There's a little army guy in there. There's all sorts of stuff in the originals that, yeah, with a much higher resolution and the higher quality, it's a little harder to sneak that stuff in. The fans find it.
Instantly.
A quick question, Russell. What was the size of the modeling team? And they were all predominantly hard surface modelers, correct?
So we have hard surface modelers, and we have creature modelers. And then there's actually an environments group as well. So, you know, my group was really focused on the ships and the vehicles and the AT-ATs, you know, AT-ACs, the new walkers, you know, and then helping out with the environments and other stuff. So there's the hard surface group is really focused on that side of things, and then the creature group focuses on any, you know, digital people, digital characters, digital doubles, and then creatures, you know, and things like that.
What was the size of the modeling team?
It varied. It was actually a fairly small team. I think we were 8 model and texture artists here, and then we had some help from some of our other facilities as well. And then we had, I think, 3 or 4 creature people as well. So yeah, it's you know, I was on the show for 18 months, so it was a small crew, but we for a long time, you know, which was good. I mean, we had some. And we also, one thing that was nice on this show as compared to some of the other ones, we actually had some of our modelers started out working directly with Gareth in the art department. So like the modeler on the U-Wing, for example, Coley, he actually worked with Gareth and Ryan Church directly in the art department, building up some sort of early versions of the U-Wing, and then he transitioned into you know, production modeling on the show. So he brought a lot of his art direction experience to the show, and so he, you know, so we had a bit of an advantage in that standpoint as well.
And Russell also took his team up to, you see that top photo up there? He took his team up to the Lucas archives, George's archives of all the original models and miniatures. And they spent a day up there photographing and measuring and scanning every inch of every ship.
Yeah.
So.
We actually went twice, which was actually really unusual. We went the first time, we did a really complex photo shoot of some of the ships, the Star Destroyer and a couple other ships, and then we went again and we did another more color-focused scanning session where we really focused on trying to capture accurate color information. And we used a thing called a NIX scanner, which allowed us to capture the actual color things. So we placed a little device on each one of the models and capture the color so that we could really try and accurately match the color as best we could. There is 20 years, you know, actually 40 years of aging on some of these things, so the color has shifted a little bit, but you know, we did our best starting point is what we did.
It's one of those things everyone knows. They think they know exactly what, you know, the ships look like and what color they are, and you go see the real one and like, no, TIE fighters are blue, not gray, because of the way they had to shoot them. You know, and they're gray in the movies due to color correction.
Yep.
And the Star Destroyer is not the white you think it is.
No, it's a lot. It's really interesting to see them too. So yeah, and it is interesting from the standpoint from what we were approaching as that. If you've never seen the real ones in life, you have this memory of them, and you go and you see the real ones, and you're like, that's not anything like what I remember it to be. And because our imagination fills in the details, and so you know we want to sort of help with that, and fill in some of those details. So when you see them now, you're like, oh my god, that's the ship I remember it to be. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.